Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome. I'm Mary Hookaday. I'm the Master of Trinity Hall. And it's really wonderful to come all this way and find two great things. One, that it's warm. Uh, it was 12 degrees when we left, and it's just, been a bit on the cold side. So it's absolutely lovely to come and bask in some sunshine. But second, to find such a fabulous group of Cambridge folk from so many different colleges. Special shout out, obviously, for the Trinity Hall people. But no, really, really great to see you all. And to find the Bay Area, uh, Cambridge in America community thriving. So thank you very much indeed. I think we're going to have a real treat. There will be more time for chatting afterwards, by the way. I realise it was quite hard to break you all up and get you to come and sit down, but I think you're really going to find it worth it because I'm absolutely delighted to say that we're going to be hearing from one of the leading AI technology entrepreneurs and one of the leading female technology and AI entrepreneurs at that. Trinity Hall alumna, Tuche Bullitt. And she's going to be speaking to us tonight about her experiences, but also her reflections. She grew her AI market insight company, Streetbees, into a multi-million dollar enterprise with many Fortune 500 clients. And she's now working on another startup. So she's got a great story to tell about being an entrepreneur, but also some fascinating reflections from the world that she's been in about what machine learning and what AI means actually in the end for all of us and for society as a whole. So I think you'll really enjoy listening to her. And then after Tuche's talk, we'll have a chance for questions and conversation. So please welcome Tuche.
Thank you, everyone. What a fascinating group of people. So, what we want to do today, make this as interactive as possible. I think there are lots of interesting thoughts here. So, we want to get into the topic of AI and make this more of a discussion. But before we jump in, let me get started with who I am, what I've done, and how I got into this world of AI. I am a Trinity Hall graduate, political science, not computer science. I started my training as a philosopher and economist, moved into political sociology and political economy after that. And I built my first business out of London. We had an office in New York. We got to about 250 people. We were doing AI at a time in 2015, which gives away the age, at a time that AI was not popular. And we took the idea of you can turn image and text into data, and we can better understand the world around us with that into a business. We grew to about 250 people. We raised more than 80 million, and I eventually exited the business in 2023. Now, London is already a very advanced technology city. It's a very advanced economy. And then I moved to San Francisco to start my new business in 2025. And yet I saw a big divide in our understanding of what we thought AI was sitting in London versus the world we are operating here in the Valley. And that tells you so much about the rest of the world. London is already miles ahead, and we are sitting here looking at a completely different modus operandi for business, for economy, that the rest of the world is really not familiar with yet. And things are gonna change this time. Unlike agricultural revolution, unlike industrial revolution, this is all going to happen so fast. We all have a big role in this to prepare the society we are living in for what is to come. Now, maybe I take a quick step back. Is the microphone okay? Are you guys, is it a little bit like a echo? All good? All right. So let's take a step back. I started my journey at Cambridge, and after a couple of years of research, wrote a book, couple of articles, and dropped out of my PhD. I just couldn't bring myself. I mean, there are so many PhDs in the room. Kudos to you guys. I don't know how you've done it, But, it's a tremendous task to sit down and do the final mile of actually writing your thesis. And I can't help wonder if we had ChatGPT at the time, maybe. I'm not so sure, but maybe I should go back and revisit that idea. That was 2008. Really bad choice of year to look for a job in London. I moved to London and basically it was in the middle of an economic crisis. People were not even interviewing. So that was tough. And I eventually got a job as a strategy consultant, as many of us Cambridge graduates do. And I worked in that job for 6 years. I had really big dreams. I thought if this was it, I'm going to advise the world's biggest companies, whatever I know at the age of 24, 25, that we were supposed to give advice. But jokes aside, you know what I was doing every day? Sitting in front of a computer till midnight, usually 2 a.m., 3 a.m., crunching data. That was my job. I don't know if there are any investment bankers in the room, anyone who's done some consultancy. Basically, you give them a lot of data, and then you go line by line, you write your Excel sheets, and you feel pretty good if you know some shortcuts, in Excel, and if you know a few macros and some VLOOKUP formulas that speeds you up. But now we live in a world, none of those tasks are necessary anymore. So we were living and hiring Cambridge, Oxford graduates coming into these jobs, and then we were telling them until 2 a.m. you're going to sit at that desk and crunch this data. Very repetitive, same thing every single day. That was my job for many, many years, right? What happened one day is I left work, and I remember very well, our office was in Knightsbridge, my home was in Marylebone. I was walking through Hyde Park. I sat down and asked myself, is that it? Is that really it? Is that what my life is gonna be like? Basically, after 6 years, I got more senior and stuff, but still, you're doing the same thing. I decided to quit. Just like that. And then I went to my boss next day and I said to him that I have an idea. I'm just gonna build a business. He didn't believe me. He said, you're not gonna do it. You're just having a bad work week. You'll come back next week, right? Long story short, he became the first investor in my first business, StreetBees. And actually, after our Series B, he joined us as our chief revenue officer. And he did a phenomenal job growing company to even a new height after that. And that was the beginning of my AI journey. And a lot of people ask me, a political scientist, what do you know about AI? What are you going to do? But it wasn't about that so much. It was about the imagination. I spent a year doing my PhD in India, studying anthropologically why we can't get people out of abject poverty. My research was funded by World Bank, and we were working on microfinance, trying to understand the dynamics of what is happening on the ground, that no matter how much aid we give, we're not actually succeeding in fighting poverty. But I learned one thing from that. You gotta be there to do this research. You gotta understand people. Reading books, articles, looking at numbers, you are really missing the reality. And that's what StreetBees did. We asked local people using their mobile phones to take photos and to talk to us in natural language about their day. What are they doing? What are they feeling? What are they eating? Why did they choose to drink this and not that? And my imagination was that I can turn all of that at the time using, neural networks and NLU. We didn't have GPT or obviously the generative models yet, LLMs yet. And that was the imagination. And then we hired fantastic engineers to come in. I think at some point we had 50 PhDs in physics and mathematics just doing research because what we imagined wasn't technologically possible yet, right? And 8 years later, I sold the business. And at that point, it was a nice break. Moved to Italy. I was going to take some time off. I was enjoying the art, the churches, the history in Italy. I was learning Italian. It was a lot of fun. And then GPT happened. And it just starts giving you that urge again. You cannot stay outside and watch. I'm not sure if we are comprehending what a phenomenal time we are living in. This is bigger than the internet. And by the way, growing up in Turkey, I lived without internet. When I was a child, we didn't have computers and internet. So I remember still very well what a time that was. And I still think what we are seeing with large language models is a more fundamental shift in the way we live, in the way we work, and even in the way we define happiness, meaning in life. I'll go into a little bit more details of that in a second. Now, after Speak Bees and after taking some break, basically, I actually eventually moved to San Francisco to do this because I felt like there's still quite a divide. We are not getting the full story here in London. But before I go into a lot of details of this, I want to define what I mean by AI. How many people here use LLMs, large language models? Okay. How many people have used some sort of generative AI that is not ChatGPT or OpenAI? All right, still quite a bit. What about not ChatGPT, not Claude? All right, we still have some people loving it. Great. So you're starting to really absorb into your everyday reality. When it first came out, we were asking for, eggplant moussaka recipes and giving the ingredients in our fridge, right? And asking like, what can you make me today? And then we were joking about if you ask how to make a bomb, it would also tell you that. And that was quite a problem, right? We were really upset about some of the advice it was giving. Very fast, we got guardrails. We started controlling how it works. We started adding some ethical layers, etc., to that change. But that's still not what I mean by AI. We mean an entire operating system. A system that can consume input, ingest documents, images, videos, thoughts, voice, right? So it ingests, it reasons with it, it thinks, it processes all of that, and then it generates output. And that output can look quite scary as we start going into details of what that looks like, because it's not just chats, it's not just talking to you, it can control a machine. It can build bags in a factory. I'm coming here from a meeting with one of the US largest 5 banks, and we sat down today with their CIO and CTO and planned how to replace the processes in one of these largest 5 banks with our AI agents, process by process. And guess what? In financial services, 90% of the job done are processes. What is a process? Basically, you have some input. In financial services, we usually have some eligibility criteria to start a process. We check. If it's met, you do the steps, right? Look at this document, approve it, add this detail. Then we have some verification criteria at the end of it. And then we have some output. Output can be a new bank account, for example, that is opened for you, right? I really challenge you, find me a financial services process that couldn't be broken down into these 5 steps. I bet you can't. There's 10%, which is brand new thinking, reimagining banking, or, strategy, maybe, that I would separate. But the 90% of jobs in 100,000 people bank can be automated and will be automated. The CTO we were working with today, without naming the bank, naming the person, said to me that he's hired to his job to eliminate 25% of the jobs in the operations team every year. This is his mandate. This is why he got brought in to do this job. So the change to the society is not a faraway thought. It's not something, is it gonna happen? Is AI gonna get good enough? It's already happening. It's already happening in this city that we are right now in, and it will slowly start showing effects elsewhere. And the problem is the speed with which this is happening. Now, you can take your own view. Is this a good thing, bad thing? We can discuss it very happily for hours, probably. But we can't change the fact that it's happening. And we need to change the society to what it will look like as we move from here. Now, let's take a very simple one. One thing that fascinated me is I built an AI business and existed, and we grew to 250 people, right? So for the same job, how do you build a business? So you define a role. We entered US economy for the first time, for example, I think it was in 2018. And we said we need salespeople in New York. So what am I going to do? I'm going to write a job description and I'm going to interview people. And if you are good at selling, I'm going to hire you. If I want 10 more customers, I need one more of you. If I need 10 more customers, I need one more, right? It was pretty linear, basically. We kept hiring more people. Do you know how we build businesses now? We decide on what the task is needed, and then we hire an engineer to build the AI agent to do that job. We orchestrate. We don't hire for the task. We hire for the engineering skill who can build an AI agent who can do the task. That's why in Claude we have skills, right? We are building skills basically into Claude. Same thing in my company, Eloquent AI, we have skills. I'll give you one very simple example. In my previous business, what did we do for sales? I would need a BDR, business development representative, who reaches out and books the meeting. When I go to meeting, I need an account executive who actually knows the account really well, can brief me in advance, understand the whole structure of the business, understand their needs. And I need a sales engineer who knows the technology really well, so we can answer their very detailed questions about the technology, right? Now what's happening is these three roles, and by the way, we had 10 and 20 of each, by the way, right? So that team was like a 100 people team. Okay, now we have Granola. Have you guys used Granola? It's amazing. It takes notes for you. If you haven't heard of it, please use it. It just changes your life. So we have Granola open all the time. It listens to all your conversations. It basically takes all the notes for you. At the end of the meeting, it summarizes them for you. Before you go to a meeting, it gives you a brief. You met this person 3 times before. That's their child's name. That's what they want from you. And I have everything ready. I don't need an account executive. I don't need a reach out person. I don't even need a sales engineer anymore. And I'm not an engineer. I don't really understand all the complicated details of how this technology is working, but we build an AI agent for that. So when I'm in a meeting, I have my phone, I can go to my own AI agent, my solution engineer agent, and ask. And it will answer me in 2 seconds. And I can give the answer to the customer, right? All those roles gone. Are we never going to hire any salespeople? I don't know. Maybe we hire 1 or 2 in New York, 1 or 2 here in San Francisco, but that's it. I was at a dinner 2 days ago where we were speaking with someone. He's running a $150 million annual revenue company with 17 employees. And they got that in 2 years also. Right? I mean, there are really great stories you have Lovable coming out of Europe. There are a few real outliers, but this one is not even an outlier. It's actually becoming a thing where you can grow, be very productive, contribute a huge amount to the economy without hiring. But now that's the elephant in the room, and I think we should really talk about it. I'm very happy with how the jobs are changing. As I said already, I didn't like writing my PhD thesis. To me, it was just too much detail and it didn't fit with me. Or when I became a consultant, that's tedious, analysis. I hated it. And eventually I left the job. So now that you are taking away all those jobs from me, I'm very happy. But what happens to the society? What if 90% of the jobs we've got today are erased in 5 years? Are we ready for this? Is any country ready for this? I don't think so. Not only we are not ready, we are not even talking about it. In the US, unemployment just reached 4.5%. There are people I see every night in dinners behind closed doors. They quite openly say, they would never say this in public, but behind closed doors, they say they would never hire someone over 30. So we're done, basically, right? I don't know how many people in the room are under 30, but I think there's quite a few of us here who are over 30. And I'm like, I'm still pretty productive. I wouldn't like to retire yet, right? I would still like a job. So we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to learn all these new skills, work with it. But how fast can we do that? Can we do it in 5 years for the entire society? if we're going to do it, it's a pretty big task. We better get started as soon as possible to be able to actually run with that. So that's what AI native businesses look like, right? So we now have these companies. Eloquent AI started last year in May. We reached 500,000 revenues in 4 weeks. It took us in my previous company 3 years to get there. What a stark difference, the speed with which we can do. And we did it with 2 people, me and my co-founder, by the way. At that stage, we didn't even hire anyone yet. So those are AI native businesses. But then you also have businesses like your Chase Bank and US Bank and all these, like, I'm mentioning a lot of financial services. That's what we do. They are my customers. So we know them quite well, what is changing in that sector. So what's going to happen to them? They're not going to disappear overnight. There's a lot of years of work. There's trust. There's confidence built with these organizations. And that's why they use companies like us, AI native companies, to transform themselves. They know they can't build all of this from scratch. They can't even hire the right talent for that, right? But they can use companies like us to leapfrog the technology. It's quite mind-blowing when you see this. Like, a simple process. I know in the UK we have the best banking system. If I transfer from Barclays to HSBC, it goes in 5 seconds and the money arrives, right? It's very different in the US. You may be familiar. It actually can take up to 3 days here to send from one American bank to another American bank. And you sometimes even have to use physical checks and stuff, right? And there are processes built for all of this. And then AI agents come in. Currently, for example, if I make a transfer, from my Mercury account to my Chase account, it's, by the way, both my business accounts, it takes 3 days. Why? A human has to go and check that these 2 businesses are the same business, it's the same account, it's a safe transfer, etc. Now we automated all that process. Every time there's a new wire transfer, Eloquent AI's AI operator goes, checks all the details, approves, the money flows, right? That training for payment approvals, which is a pretty big deal. You have to be super secure. It's flow of large sums of money. The automation and the training of that AI agent took a week. And 6 days of that was just trying to get into their systems, by the way, with their compliance and InfoSec and everything, right? Actual training of running the AI agent just took a day, basically. I'm mentioning all of this to really get to the bottom of the speed with which things are going to change and how we are going to see that in our everyday life. So this kind of means a productivity explosion, right? How I'm doing my sales now, I have all my AI tools, so I can actually reach out and meet and follow up 10 times more clients than how I would do it without AI. So this means businesses can grow 10 times faster now than they used to. That's interesting, because this could mean we don't have a growth problem. That will fundamentally change how we live. Entire human history, well, not entire human history, but most of human history is driven by scarcity. We just don't have enough to go around. I mean, I spent many years of my life studying poverty. Well, why? Why do we have it? How does it get created? How do we get out of it? How do we enable people to get out of it, right? And the top of mind is always the idea that there isn't enough to go around. You have to be employed. That's a really interesting thought, right? I mean, put aside trust fund kids, etc. Most of us grew up with the feeling that you have to be employed. Does that feel right? Why do we assume that's right? We got taught that that's right? There's actually nothing natural about that. We also lived through centuries and centuries where your livelihood was not dependent on actually holding a job. Because you are a woman, because you were being taken care of, or because there was a different system where a few people actually were productive and the rest engaged in other activities like arts, science, thinking, etc. But the system we are in came with Industrial Revolution. There's nothing natural about it. The fact that we all had to wake up every single day, happens to be Monday to Friday. I don't know why. We chose a bunch of days. There's nothing natural about week as a concept either. And then we would go to a job, either like write stuff in your computer, send emails, or maybe it's physical labor. You are picking up the trash, you are building a building, whatever it is. And then you come back home in the evening, and about 60-65% of your productive time is spent doing a task you probably don't even really want to do. Why should that be the natural state of human being? Why did that become how we define ourselves, how we find purpose, how we find meaning? Now, why do I say that? Because if we remove the naturalness of that, imagining a new future where that's no longer the case becomes a little easier. We become a little bit more comfortable with that thought that there is a world without jobs. And I think that's quite interesting. We can take away from this moment that this is scary. We should stop AI. We should ban it. We should control it. We should put a lot of regulation on it. But it reminds me a little bit of, because I spent a lot of time studying India, when Gandhi came to power, he wanted to ban sewing machines. He didn't do it in the end because it was so obvious that you just couldn't ban it. And where would you have ended up if you did? If we don't build this AI technology, someone else will. Someone will sit in their bedroom, build this, and use it, and the rest of us will have to come to terms with it. It's much better to be in a position you are the one building it in the way you want, for the purposes you want, basically. So it's going to happen, and it's going to happen very fast. Now, where does that leave us as humanity? I want to come back. I'm not even joking. Like, when people are saying I would never hire someone over 30, they are damn serious. They also say they don't want to hire any new grads either. So you only get a job if you are between 25 and 30 right away. That's it. I think you win. That's it. Like, there's a very, very small layer of the society who's gonna get a job. How are you gonna get experience? I'm pretty sure in my first job as a consultant, I learned so much from my boss, who went through the pain of showing me the ropes and teaching me, how to handle data, how to approach, productivity of a company, etc. I don't think you can learn that just from prompting GPT. You wouldn't even know what to ask. You wouldn't even know where to start, right? So we still have to train people. How do we do that if we don't need juniors anymore either? And from the age of 30, if you are announced unemployable anymore, like, what do we do with ourselves for the remaining 80 years, given the life expectancy was already going quite crazy? Now, this really brings me to my last point, that it is very possible to walk away from all of this with a very pessimistic view that the world is going to be run by some AI agents and 3 people who are programming them. But we can, I think, really take a very different view on this as well. We are moving towards an economy where technology is no longer a constraint, where growth is no longer a challenge. It's an economy of abundance. Economies grow without you. So the only part we need to do here is find a new role for ourselves. And the human capacity is so fascinating. We have done this many times in the past, historically. It's not the first time. We used to go hunt. You're not completely idle now because you don't have to hunt anymore, are you? We moved on. We found other things that are more valuable things to do. And then we had the agricultural revolution, and then machines came, and we no longer had to be in the farms anymore. We again reinvented ourselves. We found a new job, right? We got absorbed into cities to work in factories. I'm not sure if it was better than working in a farm, but we are now again moving into a new place. We no longer have to sit in front of a computer and crunch data because there's a machine who does that for you. We don't have to create 5 drafts of the same article. You can write your thoughts, and there's a fantastic editor who is going to polish it for you, right? So I would like to believe all the benefits that we are getting from large language models and what they are able to offer us is tremendous. It will move us to a society where you don't have to wake up every day and do things just because your livelihood depends on it. We will move into a time where you can get to choose what to do with your day. You get to choose how you define yourself and meaning in your life. I'm just going to finish on 3 key things, if we are going to do this right, that we need to be keeping an eye on. We need a new social contract. The social contract we lived on has been broken for many years now. This didn't just come with GPT. And we can go into the details of why and how, the role of the woman and man, and the role of like developed society and developing economies, etc. We can go into a lot of details of that. But it is broken. And we haven't really succeeded in reconstructing it. And having an abundance economy actually helps massively with that. To agree a new social contract of how society functions. And a big part of that would be, for example, rethinking tax regimes. Why would you have income tax in a world where job is no longer even required? Maybe we would completely get rid of it. We would actually encourage companies to hire more people by completely removing income tax. How do we tax? We have to rethink that as part of this idea of social contract. I think the second one is really important for a lot of people in this room. It's the role of university, role of education in general. Wouldn't it be amazing if we all get to do lifelong learning? What I find now, being over 30 for a long time, is that not only I have to really change how I work, and sometimes really challenging, I also have to keep changing it every week. It's getting really hard. I just think that I got Claude. I'm really like, I'm very good at this. They come up with a new tool, and then next week I have to learn that, right? It's getting really, really challenging. So we gotta teach how to learn. We gotta go back to critical thinking, right? System design, structural design. And I think our universities are gonna play such an important role in rebuilding this new social contract and a new construct to help us exist within that. And the third one is basically more around meaning and identity. I was watching a very interesting interview by Seinfeld and Larry David, creator of Seinfeld. A super interesting interview where he said when he started his career, being a comedian was really cool. When you walked into a party, you would be the cool guy, right? And by the time he was done with his career and he gone into, retiring, he said it changed so much that being the coolest person in the party was about how much money you made. And not just around, the billionaires in the valley, etc. Even amongst the comedians. We all got down, reduced into a single dimension of money. Livelihood, right? You work to make money. You need money to buy things, and I'm gonna judge you on how much money you make. And that's it. That's very reductionist. Our human reality is a lot more complex than that. So I think this is the third part. We gotta rethink the taxation and how we redistribute this growth. Absolutely. We have to think about how to teach learning, but maybe most importantly, we need to start discussing what does contribution to society looks like in a world where society no longer needs your labor? What does an economy look like where your time is not required, maybe not even needed? Is that gonna make us feel idle, unnecessary? Or are we gonna rise to a new position where being funny, being a comedian, painting, or all sorts of new ways of creative thinking becomes really important again? I will finish on this. For me personally, this is not a time to feel depressed and worry about the impact of AI. This is a time to bring everyone back to Athena to rediscuss what do we want our future society to look like. Thank you so much for your patience, but I would like to open the floor if that's okay.
Xingxie, actually, my mind is exploding. We are recording this, so as we have the discussion and ask questions, it would be really great if we can get the microphone to you. So, wait till you've got the microphone, because then we can record the discussion as well. And perhaps, just say your name as well. That will be great. So, plenty to go out here. Who wants to dive in?
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. My name is Greg Mulholland. I'm a Trinity Hall alumnus. My question is, you mentioned a social contract. I don't know, there are better historians in the room than me, but I don't know of any time in history where a social contract change was not preceded by massive societal dislocation. Magna Carta all the way to 1930s in the US and the creation of the welfare state, and many other examples globally. I actually agree with you that over the 50 to 100 year time frame, it probably is an exciting development, or it's the end of humanity, one of the two. Um, I'm much more concerned about the next 5 to 20 years. I'm the CEO of an AI company. I'm doing the same thing you are. I'm not hiring like I once was, and I don't feel a lot of hope for 20-year-olds right now. And I'm not convinced that there is a social contract change available in the Western world today. I think maybe China, I think developing economies are probably much better off, and especially given your experience in India, I'd be interested to hear your perspective.
It's a fascinating, very interesting question, and we do have real historians in the room, so I will leave it to them to correct us on the historical side of things. But yes, from my studies and my knowledge, Rousseau wrote the social contract book at a time that was a lot of bloodsheds, right? So that is absolutely true, and that is a risk we do need to think about. And I think what is different right now is many wars were caused by scarcity. There was land we couldn't share, there was food we couldn't share. Now that's why I think we do have a chance. It's not for granted, and it could unfortunately go there if we don't start early enough involving everyone in the discussion and turning that fear of technology and AI into something that can benefit everyone, right? And that's why I think the really jumping in with the whole discussion around the economy of abundance is very important. We will have enough to go around and to make everyone realize themselves. Now, change is still scary for many people, right? And that's why exactly educational institutions are going to play a very big role. Because we are now in a place where we trust economic growth is going to continue. If we have the right, what I call post-politics discussions, where this is no longer about left or right, but we are just designing a new world altogether that we would like to live in, and invite everyone to be part of that discussion, we will have a chance to do this peacefully. But I am not taking that for granted for sure.
All right. Well, I am gonna give you a counter, or not even counter. I'm 23. I've just graduated college. Maybe it's a little bit more of a hope. I would love to have a job here in the Bay Area. It's the AI boom, right? And you feel like if you're not there, like you're behind, right? It's moving so fast. I got a job right now at a remote company based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And my job is essentially AI enablement, is taking a company that's been around for a long time and all their systems and the way they do things and the way they think, and trying to take AI and reshape how they interact with the work they do using AI. And so it's kind of a little bit of hope in the sense that, yes, here, when you're doing a startup and you're building a product up, you can build it with the capability of AI to interact with it. You can build it up where people are marketers, but are also computer scientists, where people are sales engineers, where people are in HR, but they also know what an agent is, right? And so you can move really fast and you can get to these levels. But what I think, and I mean, is what we're trying to do, is that a lot of the like what I face is I have marketers, I have people in IT, I have HR, but they don't know how agents work, and they don't know, like, the salespeople don't have a sale, like they need a sales engineer to come in and explain to them how the product works. And if we talk about having an agent tell the engineers how it works, but our data and our software is not set up for agents to go and run about and understand our product and go out. So I think a nice little hope is that there's a bit of, it's going to take time for anyone that's not in the Bay Area. And like at the same time, hopefully for our generation, the 20-year-olds that are just getting out of college, there is a bit of that kind of pathway where we can assist in that process coming over.
Absolutely.
But that's a little insight of maybe hope.
Well, that's great to hear. And I think we're going to come back to universities on this. And I find, like, just very quickly, someone I know proposed a very interesting AI program to a very well-known London university. And they said it will cannibalize the other computer science master's programs. It will be so popular, and they shut it down. This is also the reality. Like, inch by inch, if we're going to change this, it has to start from the universities. We got to actually start. If you graduated when you were 22, if we offered another 2-3 years of teaching people, how to work with AI agents, how to bring that kind of thought into businesses, that will already be a great start. Please, get down here. Oh, sorry. We'll go there with the mic and we'll come.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I actually have two questions. So first, you mentioned about all the AI agents you're using as a founder every day. So I have been using a Granola, Fog, Cloud most like every day. So I also wanted to know like what else, like what other agents you're using so that we can all benefit from that. Second, actually, I just got an offer from JP Morgan Chase. So here are your comments about they're going to, I don't know, like not about JP Morgan Chase specifically, very likely they are going to, like, they don't need so many people anymore. So what's your advice for anyone who are still working in the non-AI industry to be more future-proof or AI-proof? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, I think you already got the answers. You just got to become AI native in your job. That's it. Because the productivity difference is 1 to 10 between people who do and don't, right? So Granola is fantastic. Another really good one for you is Lightfield. It's the best CRM program I've worked with. Can you come up? Of course, yes. Sorry. Better, yeah. So another really great one is Lightfield. It's a complete AI native CRM system. It like Elan walk into a meeting in Manhattan. It's talking to me, who I'm meeting, and like what am I gonna talk about today, etc. It's fantastic. We build a lot of our skills in Claude. So we have like I think about 600 different skills we now built, and we make that all open to the whole team, not just for ourselves to use. And that's gonna be it. By no means, I don't think Chase is gonna become a 50 people business. Like, of course it's not, right? It's still gonna have thousands of people. But that's very interesting when you can do the same job that used to require 100 people by one person. You could still hire the remaining 99. So what will constrain the growth then if it's not human labor? That's quite interesting. That's what happens.
So I'd like to pick up on your thoughts about a society of abundance. If we positively believe in that, then we can reflect upon which were the happiest times in our own lives. For example, the freedom of childhood, where you didn't have to worry about your food or your shelter. You just had fun and you learned.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to, by playing. Or people who, with reasonable means, can retire, and they do all sorts of things in retirement. Or mothers who take time off from a career to spend time with children. So rather than think of creating some new social contract, I believe we have starting points in our own human experience. And the beauty of that is that it differs in different ethnicities, in different communities, in different regions of the world, in different climate zones of the world. we have not just abundance, but amazing variety to look forward to. And so that's a natural way to evolve. And so rather than think about, oh, Social Security is going to go bankrupt, maybe we should start saying, as a society, we will bring Social Security to a younger and younger generation. This is our current projection. We're going to take the total wealth we're generating and share perhaps 1/3 of the generated wealth to the Treasury. But you sell that by reminding the current society which were the happiest times of their life.
I love that.
I'm told Mark Zuckerberg now enjoys spending time with his children.
It's beautiful because it's natural.
It's natural.
That's one of the key things. Whenever we talk about you don't have to work, it gives people a fear as if we always worked. We didn't always work. I will give you a personal example. If I wake up in the morning, I take 20 minutes to make my coffee. I would like to grind the beans. I have like special machines for that. And then I watch the sea, drinking my coffee slowly. I arrange my flowers. I love it. I'm not rushed, right? Before starting all of that, I ran my agent store. Like I just went to my desk for 5 minutes to start maybe like 40, 50 agents running on Claude. And then I just go and make my coffee after that because productivity is already happening while I'm actually just enjoying my life. And there are absolutely many societies, a lot of women who can lead and show how a different enjoyment of life, self-realization, it doesn't have to be hedonist either. It could be still very productive, very creative, can work.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very insightful. I'm Maxim, and I've also been working in the tech software industry. But I think one area that I still have questions on how AI is going to affect it is more around the physical environment, infrastructure. And a good example is, a lot of folks are saying that AI is going to replace all jobs within the next few years, potentially. But then you look at some of the infrastructure developments that we're having. I think in 2014, they started doing the BART extension to downtown San Jose, Santa Clara. I think now it's supposed to finish in 2037. And they're like, the price has gone up 2 or 3 times. And I'm just wondering if we're able to do everything so quickly, we're able to build all this new software, how come we can't get our infrastructure done properly? I feel like that's an area that we really need to expand and grow into. Wondering if you've thought about it and what the AI applications are there.
I think there are a lot of layers to what you're asking. BART is never gonna finish, and I think it just lacks the political will to do so. So I think there's all different reasons, not that we couldn't finish that project. But there are certain jobs that are actually significantly harder than others. One of them is doing your nails. There are a few women in the room, like if you go for a manicure, right, the person who handles your nails, I can't imagine anytime soon, from what I've seen from Boston Robotics, that no one's gonna be doing my nails anytime soon, right? And there are like so many other things that are super fine labor, right? Like it's very physical. It requires a level of versatility that we just don't have from robots. Another really interesting one I find is construction. It's such hard work. I haven't met ever a removal company worker or a construction worker who doesn't have back problems. Why are we doing this to our own species? We should definitely automate that job. It's too hard, right? And it will come. That won't come in 5 years. I totally agree with you. There's a lot of work being done. The brain behind it, the programming of it. And this is the interesting thing, right? In robotics, the kind of like presentations I was seeing 15 years ago, they are still the same. Like, why are they just not improving, right? But now we have AI who generates so much more code, so much more tests. Hopefully, that will also mean in the infrastructure and hardware side, we will see faster development as well. But absolutely agree with you. It's also like think about carpentry. I consider that a form of art. I do think there are people who actually genuinely enjoy shaping wood, right? So I think it's kind of like we gotta think about it two ways. I think there will be always some people who actually want to do the job as well.
Thank you.
Also at the front, please.
So I find AI extremely empowering. So I have some paintings by Indian artists, and I talked to somebody at Sotheby's, and they said that, oh, you were sold this as a painting of Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, but it's actually Badri Narayan. And so I went into great detail with Gemini, and I found the depth was extraordinary. They said that, okay, look for his signature, and it's going to be in Devanagari script, and then look at the back of the canvas and see other, the uh, details that would pin down whether it was Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh or whether it was Badri Narayan. So, I mean, I found it entirely empowering, and I can now go to Sotheby's and sell this artwork without the slightest hesitation. So it's a wonderful collaboration.
It's so enriching.
It is so enriched and so empowering. I'm a great fan.
I completely agree. Especially, I find, I think there are some computer scientists in the room, but I believe there are quite a few who are not. And in that way, I find it quite empowering as well. I can now build my own software. It's so much fun. I mean, I know it is a bit of a, nerdy thing to say, but I did spend a Saturday. I just think of something, "Ooh, would it be great if that existed?" And I can't even code. And I'm going to sit down, write my concept, my, extract, thinking about it. And like literally 5 hours later, I have it. It's done. It's my own software, just built for me, exactly for my task. It's incredibly empowering.
I have to tell you that we had a Cambridge alumni event. We go to Shakespeare Santa Cruz, and they had a Midsummer Night's Dream. So I was preparing a talk for the alumni before we watched the play. And so I did a lot of research and a lot of time, books, and I wrote my speech. And then my husband said, "Oh, why didn't you see what Gemini has to say on the subject?" I was amazingly impressed. It was pretty much what I had discovered, Lindsay. And I would have saved a ton of time.
That's absolutely.
So really, for the humanities, it's also extremely empowering.
Completely agree.
Hello, thank you very much for a super interesting talk. I'm Luna Filipovic from UC Davis, also Cambridge alumni. Not from Trinity Hall, apologize, from Churchill. Total intruder here. Thank you. Yes, I have a little bit of a different perspective. I do a job that cannot be done by AI, and so I'm super secure in my position. But I wanted to ask you something in line with what you said about Claude and Anthropic and their ideas of the role of humanities, because I do a job where human minds, the theory of mind has to be there. If you're talking to a suspect in a forensic interview, you have to have a rapport. You have to make with a victim of a serious crime. I'm a forensic psycholinguist. So they wouldn't connect with a computer. There has to be a human connection for them to talk, for them to feel empathy, for them to feel rapport, for them to want to tell you information. So I train law enforcement as well in my non-academic time. So I'm just interested in your view on the role of humanities and social sciences and those activities that will always need humans there. And maybe those would be the kind of training jobs as we are, humanities being cut. Maybe that's the way forward, not to cut the humanities and to have more of us dealing with this kind of jobs and professions.
100%. And let me ask you a question. Do you like your job?
Love it. I live for it.
Precisely,
I
right?
live for it daily.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful. And I would love a society where everyone can say that. And they wake up in the morning and they want to do the job, right? I think we are incredibly lucky. I love my job too. Well, most of the time, not every day. But I don't think everyone does. I met a lot of people who would say during my PhD research, there are a lot of jobs that are you would rather stay at home, arrange flowers, and take care of your kids. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why don't we just allow people to do that too, if that's what they would like to do? And you don't have to work. I think that's what really the imagination here is. And I completely agree with you. Cutting budgets from humanities, I'm of course massively biased being a political scientist myself. And had a full scholarship at Cambridge for all 4 years of my studies, and I wouldn't be able to afford it if I didn't. So if we cut these budgets, people won't get to study these things, right? I think we need a bit of time for adjustment. We will slowly understand how important humanities are. Understanding history is so significant at a moment like this, right? Understanding human nature, the psychology, etc., will become more important. Interestingly, what we are seeing though already at Meta, Amazon, and similar companies, while they are firing engineers in en masse, they're hiring linguists and historians and psychologists. Not in the same amount, right? By no means. It's not like 20,000 versus even maybe 1,000. But I think that balance will change. I completely agree.
Is there question there? Some serious question next year.
So I'm the other 20-year-old in the room. I graduated same year as my brother here. I work with humanoid robotics. So this is a comment to your complaints about BART and where we aren't using robots there. There are two companies I'd like to, this is not like a question, but more like a get people to know. Figure is one humanoid robotics company. They're probably going to be the ones that end up, going into manufacturing or construction. I work for a company called 1X, and we do more home robots, so more focused on safety rather than, what Figure does. But I can't say too much, but give it a few years and there might be a robot that can paint your nails, that has that sort of fine dexterity.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, you kind of okay. Just me.
Hi, Rob Hodgkins fan, also Trinity Hall 2004 graduate. So Trinity Hall itself was set up after the Black Death to train lawyers. And in the world of kind of Harvey and Lagora, that role is probably not going to be necessary in the future for a university. So I'm curious as to both your view and the master's view, if you don't mind me putting on the spot, as to what you see the role of a university being in the world of AI. Because I'm not sure, I'm not quite as optimistic as you that there is such a need for a university, at least so many universities, for such a broad, swathe of the population.
Would you like to tell us?
It's a really big question, and it's moving so fast that I think universities, like any other institution and part of society at the minute, we're sort of racing to try and work out and keep up. So I suppose you say in that case we have all these young people with energy and kind of hunger and willingness and a capacity to learn and those kind of plastic brains. What are the right bets? And it's probably two or three things. One is that there's quite a lot of conversation that says some of the applied, as we've been hearing, where science meets application, it's some of the applications that may most quickly get displaced. But there probably therefore is still a premium on pure research, in a way, in any field, because in fact we were having a conversation earlier today with another alum in this space, that in an uncertain world, asking good questions, I identifying problems and perhaps beginning to think, okay, how might one begin to tackle that problem? In other words, there's a whole load of thinking and work that has to happen before you, in a way, get to, you know, program the skill or put the right question to chat GPT to start to get the answers or to build your code. So I think there's something about the university being a space for that kind of exploratory and pure thinking. I do also think, and it's come up that that there is a moment to re-articulate the purpose of the humanities after a couple of decades where the premium and focus has really been on STEM as drivers of growth and somehow the space that will answer questions and problems. So I I think in a way it's come not a moment too soon, but there's space there. But I think the final thing, in a way, in whatever subject any young person does, and Cambridge is quite good at this, I think, is to foster a mindset that says you will need to keep learning and you will need to keep an open mind because the world is changing fast and other skills, which are perhaps less purely intellectual, will be just as important. And they are human skills and relationship building and resilience and creativity and adaptability. So I think the Cambridge supervision model, which is in itself human scale and interactive, is quite a powerful place and a powerful model to foster that kind of thinking, alongside sheer knowledge generation, which in some ways, AI and the new technologies ought to foster for a world where some people don't have access to it at the minute. Actually, there's a lot of knowledge transfer that could happen on a much more truly global scale throughout societies that are much less advantaged than the Bay Area or Cambridge. But there's something about the education model that could preserve or keep fostering that kind of mindset that perhaps will help our students prevail. That's got to be the hope. Anyway, those are just some thoughts. I don't know if they make sense. Yeah. Jack, yeah.
Jack Hawkins, Trinity Hall, professor of linguistics here at the University of California, Davis. I want to play devil's advocate a little bit because we've got a room full of people who are impacted by AI profoundly and positively or negatively in terms of their jobs. And you've made a very convincing case that there's an area like finance where this is going to have a dramatic effect and where many of the jobs could be replaced. But I can think of 1001 where it will not have an impact and shouldn't have an impact. If I go to the San Francisco Symphony, I don't want to be listening to a bunch of robots or listening to a machine. If I go to a Lakers game, I don't want to watch a bunch of robots going around. And countless examples, if I'm a university professor, to bring it back to the university. I don't want to sit there listening to some robot or to a bunch of recordings or to even people hiding behind computers and relying on what the computers give. My students, I know, appreciate my direct, traditional Cambridge lecturing style. They appreciate paper handouts. They appreciate all kinds of things that they're not getting in this day and age. And moreover, if we just leave aside the 1001 professions that are not going to be impacted and made redundant by this, and if we focus on the things that LLMs do, I have several students that have jobs in Silicon Valley working on the next generation of LLMs. And the reality is, I've tested some of these things, ChatGPT and so on, and they don't actually get it right. There are inaccuracies. When machines translate from one language to another, they still do a terrible job. If I'm going to go to the doctor and have a machine diagnose my amputation, I'm going to be seriously concerned. And I can give countless examples like this. The subtlety isn't there. The details, they look impressive. The LLMs are fantastic at solving the grammaticality problem. They hardly make any grammatical errors. But the content, the semantics, I mean, it's amazing they do as well as they do, because they're only here. When I'm speaking, you hear sounds and you have meanings entering your mind. These LLMs are based on pure forms, on the authority.
That was amazing.
My point is that they're good, but not great, and there's still a lot of improvements to be done. So my question to you is, what's the balance here? What proportion of society is actually going to be impacted by this, and what proportion is going to be like your finance sector, where you can and are already seeing these massive and excellent, exciting changes. I don't dispute that for a second. But as I said, it's certainly not for everyone, and I don't think it's going to have the radical effect that you think it will. 50 years ago, people were saying, oh my God, we've got microfiche, and big invention back then. We've got microfiche, and we're not going to have any journals in paper anymore. We're not going to have any more paper. There's not enough trees, and we're not going to have books. I just published a book today. It appeared. Books are big. Books are huge. Books are very much a part of our culture. People who produce books will always be needed. People who write books will always be needed. So I think there's a real, limit to the extent to which this brave new world is going to appear. And perhaps you might or might not want to comment on just how much a society you think will be impacted when you look at all of these sectors. I'm talking about sports and physical activities and arts and culture. The Shakespeare.
Sure. Yeah, we're very happy to. Super interesting thoughts. And first of all, I agree with you. I think there is no conflict between what I thought so far and what I'm hearing from you. Look at the jobs. Totally agree. When I go watch San Francisco Symphony, the pianist is phenomenal, and I would like to listen to him. It's like incredible. Or when I watch a Giants game or Lakers game, that's what I want to watch. I think a robotic Olympics just does not sound interesting at all. I think universities, I already mentioned, in a very unique position. I think they are the future, because I think the key skill we still need is thinking, to learn how to think, how to read people. But let me ask you this. What percentage of society are these roles? We are just very lucky people in this room. Like, let's not forget that, right? My father was a mathematics professor. I grew up in a house, everywhere were books. I read Socrates and Plato by the age of 9, right? And I think that's a luxury. When I started studying, in India and other places, and you go around, and I would say, being an economist, I don't like giving numbers without having my data, but I would say the majority of the population does not like the job they do today. They just have to do it because the economy needs them to do it, and their livelihood depends on it. So wouldn't it be so nice? Everyone gets to play basketball and baseball and enjoy it. Everyone gets to play piano, even if they are not as good as the San Francisco Symphony guy, right? I think that, to me, that just looks like a better world. Now let's touch on another thing because I think you're making such an interesting point. Also, totally agree with you. I don't agree with Anthropic when they say we don't even need computer scientists anymore. No one needs to code. It's all done. Absolutely not. When we are even in finance, when we are automating processes, it's done literally one by one. To a human, I can say, here is like 50 things you need to do. Go figure it out. You do it. A smart human is going to just do it and they're going to get it right most of the time. For AI, we have to do it one by one. We have to put guardrails and criteria and application and verification criteria. Why? We need to ground it. If we don't ground it, it's going to make mistakes, unacceptable mistakes. But we learn this so fast. That's interesting. When I first started with my AI business, we couldn't ground certain things that it was impossible to use this technology in financial services. Now already it is in less than a year. So that's the really interesting part. Language is a whole another discussion. The prowess we have in English with LLMs, you can go to China and work with Chinese models, right? But that's pretty much it. For the rest of the languages today, we translate everything back to English. We process through LLMs in English because it works the best. And then we translate back to the language to speak to the person. Because we can't think yet with LLMs in a foreign language as well as we can in English. So I think there's a huge amount of progress to be made there for sure.
Right. Those question I'm thinking, well, after you pick laser.
So it's very interesting. This got
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you for a great discussion, everyone, led by yourself. I've been to several discussions like this, and what I find
is the conversation is always in a Western context. We coped with the Industrial Revolution, we coped with the Agricultural Revolution, we coped with 1929. But I travel to India a lot as together, and what I see there is a huge economy dependent on outsourcing of many, many functions that are now going to be taken away because banks don't need offshore it, IT companies don't need offshore. And those countries' culture, I don't think, have the same history, resilience, opportunity to study art when you look at the number of people in fully local. What happens in those when we can't distribute our income to them? It's hard enough to redistribute it internally in our own economies. What happens in those societies which have become so dependent on me, it's servicing our not to?
I think I know we need to close. So I have two thoughts on this. The first one is we may have to consider the DP distribution. With the climate change, there are a lot of theories already saying Pakistan will disappear as a land, within the time that we will still be alive, and 300 million will lose their lands. How are they going to absorb that, right? Is it going to start a war? Is there any way coming back to your point? Is there any way to do that without a war? We're going to have to answer these questions, not just because of AI, but also change in the climate conditions. So we may have to redistribute beyond our own geographical boundaries. Also, I have another thought on this, right? I studied in Indian history. I studied Persian history as well. It's really rich. The religion, Sufism, the thoughts of the Persian philosophers. I'd also say, let's see what happens. Let's leave them alone and let's leave them to their own tools. You may be surprised, the human capacity is just so fascinating. In a world where they actually can go back to, all right, I have plenty of time now, coming back to the whole concept of abundance. It's not just karmic abundance, we're talking about abundance of time. I think we will surprise ourselves in terms of what kind of creative forces we can bring in. And I think coming back to your points, it's a probably good one to close on. It's going to bring back that diversity that brings us a lot of richness.
Thank you all very, very much indeed. We can take a bit more time as a group, and there's still more wine to keep the conversation going and speak to Tuğçe. But thank you all very much indeed, and above all, let's thank Tuğçe. Thank you.